Hey guys, what's up? It's Kevin for the win, and we're back for another edition of Diablo 3. Today is the official start date of Season 23 of Diablo that goes live at 7 p.m. Eastern. Chances are, if you're watching this right now, you're probably already way into your season's journey. Today on the channel, we're going to be taking a look at the Firebird's Finery armor, which has gotten a significant rework compared to last season and the seasons before that. It's been completely overhauled. New abilities, new skills. It's completely different from the way it originally worked. So the two-piece bonus, first off, you notice, is going to be different. Disintegrate ignites enemies, causing them to take 3,000% weapon damage per second until they die. And when you die, the meteor effect still happens. The four-piece bonus gets a bit more interesting, as casting Disintegrate adds combustion stacks that reduce the cooldown of teleport by 2% per stack, and the stacks up to 50 times. You gain 80% damage reduction while maintaining combustion stacks. So now you're actually a very defensive set. The six-piece set bonus says you gain 2,000% increased damage while Ignite is applied to a target. Hitting an ignited enemy with a non-channeling spell deals Ignite damage multiplied by combustion stacks. Now, think about this. Disintegrate's pretty powerful based on the two-piece bonus of the armor, but now with the six-piece bonus in conjunction with not using any other channeling fire effects, you can get a lot of damage out. The six-piece part was completely reworked. We're going to be using, to help this set out, the Captain Crimson set, so we're going to be using the belt as well as the feet. Two-piece bonus, 6,000 life per second, reduces cooldown of all skills by 20%, and also the resource cost. Free-piece of the set says damage dealt is increased by your percentage of damage reduction. So we get to do even more damage with the set. To help augment this even further, we're going to be using Death Wish, and we're going to be using the Orb of Infinite Death, because we're going to have to rely on certain fire skills that don't rely on channeling, which is why we're going to have to use some very unconventional skills that you normally wouldn't incorporate into builds. We're also going to be using Squirt's Necklace. We're going to be using a convention of elements, and I personally recommend that you run a Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac. I don't have it for this build because I didn't get a good ancient legendary version of it to drop. Squint Necklace is kind of important because it says when you're dealing damage, you do more damage. When you get hit, you do take more damage, but it's not going to matter too much thanks to the four-piece bonus of Firebird's Finery, which also got a rework. Now, for the skills primary, we're going to be using Spectral Blade, Flame of Blades. This is actually to help our mirror images. We're also going to be using Hydra, Blazing Hydra, because this is a good passive ability. Teleport, we're going to use Safe Passage, that way we take less damage. Explosive Blast, Chain Reaction, we're going to be using this for when mobs get too close to us and we have to deal damage that way. Mirror Image, Extension of Will, very important, that way you can keep your mirror images up. We're going to be using Disintegrate, Converges, this is where a lot of our damage is going to be coming from. For the passives, Galvanizing 1, Arcane Dynamo, which is very important that you run this skill as well. Audacity, just so we can be a little bit more tanky, and Conflagration, because since all our skills are fire, we're going to be doing a lot of damage. Knives Cube, you can play around with it, but my recommendation would be going Serpent Sparker, that way your Hydras can do more damage. We need Mantle of Channeling on here because we're channeling Disintegrate, so we want to be able to do more damage and take less damage, and it's absolutely important that you run the Ring of Royal Grandeur, that way you get all your set-piece bonuses without having to run every piece of the armor. Now, as for the follower, that's been reworked. I have not had time to add any armors to use the emanate abilities, so we're going to have to just rely on doing that in a future installment. For the purposes of this demonstration, some people have called them showcases now, so let's rock with that. Showcase, we're going to be doing a Greater Rift 60, a Greater Rift 65, and a Greater Rift 70. I'm going to explain now how this particular build works. It's much different. It should be able to push Greater Rift 70s now with general ease. There's no legendary gems augmented into any of the armor pieces because I was working very fast to get this build out to you. So this is kind of for own purposes a naked run. First thing you're going to do when you get into the Greater Rift is automatically cast your Disintegrate. You're going to see targets with a flame on their head. That means they're ignited. From there, start casting your Hydras. Start using your Spectral Blades whenever things get too close to you. And make sure you cast your Mirror Image. Mirror images are kind of like pets, so it's kind of important to have them attack around. Sometimes they don't attack the intended targets, which is why you got to rely more heavily, I would say, on your Hydras. Now, Same situation here. I'm going to ignite, but since enemies are getting closer to me and they're starting to surround me, what I'm going to do is start channeling, or not channeling, but casting my explosive blast, because when I channel the explosive blast, or cast it, I should say, it's going to take out all the targets that are ignited and pretty much one-shot everything. Now, in terms of the legendary gems, you can kind of play around quite a bit with this build. What I decided to go with this turn around was Enforcer, because they are pets to Hydras as well as the mirror images. The other thing that I'm running here is a Bane of the Stricken, because Disintegrate does accumulated damage. It takes a while sometimes to take out certain targets, so it's very important to have that. And now for the third gem, you can kind of play around with this. You could go, if you wanted to, Tegook. That's what I chose. That way I'm more tanky and can do a little bit more damage because I'm using, once again, a channeling skill. Another alternative that you can go, I don't recommend Bane of the Trap, but if you're going to be attacking from very far away distances, my recommendation would be Zael's Stone of Vengeance. That way you could do more damage with your Disintegrates, I should say. However, keep in mind that to use Explosive Blast in particular and Spectral Blades, you have to be very close to the enemy, which means Zay's Stone of Vengeance would be virtually useless in that situation. So that's why I recommend necessarily going with a Tegook. Another thing that you could go, if you don't want to run a Tegook, you could, in theory, run Goaka Swiftness. That way that you can give your mirror images even more cooldown, and you're getting even more cooldown reduction, which will help with Captain Crimson. It should push your attack stat up by another 200 to 300 damage. I don't see it that it would be personally worth it. However, that is ways that you can experiment with it. Keep in mind, this is a brand new build, and people are still playtesting it out to get all the kinks out. But this is so far the most optimal way to play Firebird. So keep in mind, you have to keep channeling that Disintegrate so that all your targets are ignited, and then the rest of the skills will be able to do even more damage. Now, first impressions of Firebird's Finery's rework. This is actually really good. This is kind of what this armor set needed. The original 6-piece bonus was just too complicated to get it off, and trying to keep those combustion and ignited stacks took way too much work, and you didn't get really enough value out of it. A little disappointed. I was hoping that the 6-piece bonus would do 3,000% damage as opposed to 2,000% damage, but I think they're factoring in the fact that the 2-piece set bonus gives you a bit of damage as it is, so why get another multiplier on top of a multiplier? So now, here's a good example where I'm going to start casting Explosive Blast if they get too close to me. That way, I can just kind of push everything away from me, take them out. That's really when you want to start using your Explosive Blast. Otherwise, you're going to be kind of cycling from your Disintegrates to your Mirror Images to your Hydras, and then if things are too close, you can just Spectral Blade them away. Usually, if they're ignited already, I'm going to Explosive Blast here. That way, I can take out a lot of targets all at once. Case in point, I teleport around too, because remember, I teleport super fast as well, thanks to this set. So there, the Hydras took out because ignited. It's very important to make sure you use your Disintegrate to just move it around to ignite every target in sight so that the rest of your skills and the rest of your pets, those being the mirror images and the Hydras, are able to take out their targets with relative ease. Now, some people are probably going to be asking, well, why aren't you using the static charge effect, the one that's Flame Ward? If I remember correctly, that's what the skill is. We're not using Flame Ward here because keep in mind that this is 6-piece bonus, does not allow for any error channeling abilities outside of Disintegrate to be able to do damage, so you have to use regular non-channeling abilities to get the 6-piece bonus damage out there. So Flame Ward really has no purpose in this set because it doesn't work any way to synergize with this particular armor set. So case in point here, I'm going to keep things extremely tight. I'm going to not really Disintegrate too much because obviously I have the effect of the pylon that shoots out lightning. But if I wanted to, I could Disintegrate and then go Explosive Blast. Case in point, I'm saying up here for if I get another Disintegrate off with Explosive Blast, we'll take things out. Generally, on Greater Rift 60, you're going to be one-shotting a lot of things even without true optimization here. I'm going to Disintegrate it, and then I'm going to hit it with a fire skill. Hydras, preferably. I was waiting for Explosive Blast to get the cooldown on that, but unfortunately I can't. Okay, so we're just going to level up in case for this particular run. random gem. I'm going to probably level up a Bane in the Trap, and then eventually we will augment that into our Ancient Legendary Armor piece for this particular build in a future installment. So there are a lot of options. Keep in mind, once again, I would recommend using for Legendary Gems Tegook, Bane of the Stricken, and Enforcer because your Hydras and your Mirror Images are considered pets. Alright, let's see how fast that clear was. That was a 5-minute clear time, greater of 60, which is the equivalent of Torment 13. So that's very, very good compared to what it was originally. For the purposes of this demonstration, we are doing a greater of 65, same strategy. The mobs are going to be a little bit more tanky, so we're going to disintegrate everything. And then if they come close to us, what we're going to do is rely more heavily in this situation, our chain explosions from explosive blast. So here we go. Disintegrate everything around you. Sometimes they'll just die from the disintegrates and the hydras picking off things. Sometimes if there's just too many things and you feel like you're getting overwhelmed, disintegrate everything to ignite them and then go explosive blast and you will take everything out. Now, if you're waiting for explosive blast to cool down, because it does take a little bit of time to cool down unless you're running like Flawless Royal Diamonds on this set, which I'm not at the moment because I just wanted to show you how powerful it can get without super optimization. But if not, what you want to do is you go Disintegrate, and then you use Spectral Blades to clear things out, and then Explosive Blast when the cooldown comes on. Now, keep in mind the 2-piece bonus also says when you die, you drop a meteor, and it's like if you didn't die before. That effect really is okay. It's still not the best ability. It's nice to get a free lease on life, but as you get higher up in the greater rifts, particularly greater rift 65, 70, and above, you're going to be taking a lot of damage. So chances of you getting a 4-piece chance to augment an Ancient Legendary Gem gets significantly lower. In those particular situations, what I recommend is just don't stress out if you get killed once or twice. This is not an S-tier armor still yet. It's went from being F-tier, in my opinion, to potentially a B-tier. This is something that is pretty good for a season start. So let's say Season 24, it ends up being the Hadred's Gift. Season 23's Wizard Hadred's Gift is actually Talraja, which I covered last Friday on the channel. That's available on the playlist. I did an Explosive Blast version, which is called Flashfire, so it takes kind of the principles of Flashfire and takes it up to a whole level, so definitely check that one out if you're trying to figure out how to run Talraja. But maybe in Season 24, if this is actually your star set for the Wizard, assuming we do get a Season 24, this is actually a pretty good seasonal start. Honestly, I would recommend this over using your Talraja. So if you get Firebird pieces as you are rocking your Talraja and you find yourself struggling to clear greater rifts, I would recommend actually swapping out your Talraja pieces to go for this build. This build is much different from any of the other wizard styles that have been in the past playstyle-wise. And another thing is that it's very tanky because of, as long as you can maintain your combustion stacks, you really can't take too much damage that would be considered fatal. And based on the passes that we are running on the set, it makes you even more tanky. So, as you can see, those mobs were a little bit more tanky, so I held in Disintegrate a bit more, channeled the Hydras, and then anything that I felt still was taking too long to kill, I would channel Explosive Blast. And in last case scenario, if I need to Spectral Blade, case in point, just Spectral Blade there to take out some things because I was waiting on a cooldown window for Explosive Blast. You pretty much want a Spectral Blade. The one problem with this build, and I'll say this right off the bat, is that mirror images kind of have a mind of their own. They don't really follow you, kind of like how the in a set where you have your followers, those particular followers and minions will follow you around kind of faithfully. These mirror images, they have a tendency that they will attack 1 or 2 targets, and then before they dissipate, they just kind of run off on their own, not really doing anything. Case in point there, you see how far behind they are. So don't rely too heavily on your mirror images. The reason why they're on this particular build is because whenever they cast an ability, which usually will be the Spectral Blade, which is why we're running it, they deal fire damage. So it's just an extra fire damage thing that you could use with the 6-piece bonus. You could use the Black Hole, but the Black Hole's really not that good. And I'm not 100% sure, because I haven't had time to really extensively playtest it if that black hole is considered a channeling ability. I believe it is, which is why we can't use it for the 6-piece bonus, but I have to experiment a little bit more. Obviously, Season 23 just came out. The update came out like 2 days ago, so I'm experimenting with this on my non-seasonal wizard character, because that way I could show you pretty much what you should be striving for and how your wizard should be working effectively and the most optimal wise. Now, for optimizations purposes for this armor, my recommendation, as always, is on your helm. Get crit hit chance 6% or 8%, depending on whether you have a legendary, ancient legendary, or you have the regular version. It depends. If you have the regular version, chances are you're going to get, I guess, 6.0 roll. If you have an ancient legendary, you have a chance of getting an 8.0% chance drop on that. So definitely, it's worth re-rolling if you have an ancient legendary. On the gloves, my recommendation would be crit hit chance 8.0 or 6.0, depends again whether you have ancient legendary piece or not. Attack speed 6.0 or 8.0. Anything within that range is good. You just want an attack speed, so that way you could get your attack stat up higher and you could attack a little bit faster. Crit hit damage also, definitely recommend on your gloves. 50%, get the maximum amount of damage. Remember, the more critical hit damage that you do, the more damage you are dealing to mobs. And as you go higher up in the Greater Rifts, that becomes significantly more important for your pushing. Alright, we went to the Rift Guardian now, so we're going to channel Disintegrate, we're going to channel some Hydras, I'm going to teleport around, Explosive Blast, because it's ignited enough. Explosive Blast, as you saw there, one-shotted it. So that's how you're going to have to deal with a lot of your Rift Guardians. The higher up you get, the less aggressive you're going to be able to be. So you'll have to attack from further away, rely on Hydras, and hopefully your mirror images will actually do something as opposed to running away. On the lower Greater Rifts, you can get away with being a little bit more aggressive, but higher up, you have to keep your distance, which is why then maybe you want to switch that Tegut for Zay's Stone Vengeance, or maybe even the Bane of Stricken, and you go Zay's Stone of Vengeance with Tegut and Enforcer. You can play around with the gems. This build, fortunately, gives you enough leeway where you can play around with the gems and experiment to see what best suits your particular playstyle with this build. Alright, so that was Greater Rift 65, 5 minutes and 52 clear seconds. So that's super fast for this particular build, which used to be super slow. It used to take like 10 minutes on that Greater Rift. Alright, we're doing a Greater Rift 70. This will be the last Greater Rift that I do for this demonstration of Firebird. Definitely let me know in the comments what you think of the revised Firebird set. Do you like the rework on it? Do you feel like it's not strong enough still? Are you planning to actually rock it for Season 23 of Diablo, or are you going to stick to some of the stronger build? Now, stronger builds, particularly when it comes to the Wizard class, the two most used sets are, first off, you have the Veer set, which is Chantotum Veer. That is still the end-all to be-all. That's a Archon set, which relies heavily on using your Archon to just smash through things and destroy things in a matter of seconds. That's a super fast build that is for speed farming and as well as for super high leaderboard placement. The other S-tier build is the Hydra build, the Frost Hydra build. That's using the Typhoon set for the Wizard. That is the S-tier push variant for the Wizard that does extremely well as Chantotum Veer. It's just as fast. It probably loses about maybe 30 seconds in total when it's truly optimized from it, and it's a bit more push where you don't have to rely heavily on windows and going super fast in your particular build. This particular armor, I would kind of say it's somewhere in the middle, which is why I say B tier. Still, I think Magnum Opus, whether you're using the Arcane Orb build, which I will cover actually in Season 23 in a future date, or even if you're using the Energy Twister variant, is still kind of a step above this particular build. I would say then you go Firebird, and then I would say then you go Tal Raja on terms of which ones you would use. Tal Raja now is technically the worst of the Wizard armors, when that used to be Firebird. Firebird now is somewhere nice in the middle. With further optimization, I would say confidently that you can actually get this high up into maybe Greater Rift 130. Maybe 140 might be just out of its reach, unless you are spending a lot of time on your resources getting the best rolls and just really you have to play from very far away and hope that you're dealing a lot of damage. Ways you can also optimize this armor. Outside of cooldown, you need cooldown wherever you can get it, so that way Captain Crimson does more damage. You definitely want to look into 15% Disintegrate. That way you could do more damage with your Disintegrate. If you can get somewhere Spectral Blades to do a little bit more damage, definitely do that. If you see a spot where you could get Hydras to do more damage, definitely go that way. I would say don't really invest 15% on mirror images, because the problem with mirror images is, like you see, they kind of pick the target, they don't last too long, and sometimes even when you cast them, they just kind of stand there, not really contributing at all to your Greater Rift efforts. So why would you invest on that? Hydra is probably your best bet. Disintegrate is definitely your best bet. And then the rest of the skills, probably I would just go cooldown instead. You can get cooldown on your shoulders. If you choose not to get the 12% movement speed on your boots, you can get cooldown there as well. Preferably, I do recommend movement speed 12%, because being able to move around a little bit faster helps in terms of clear times with the leaderboard placement. As you can see, the mobs here are getting a bit more tanky, so I had to play Keep Away, Ignite them with Disintegrate, and then I'm relying a bit more heavily on my Hydras actually to do a lot more damage here. Now, in theory, you might actually be able to experiment with a weird mix of Firebird and the Typhoon set. It's stuff you could play around with. I have a lot of ideas, particularly for the Firebird set. This is right now considered the most optimal way to play Firebird for Season 23 at the moment. Keep in mind, we're just starting the season today, and people have only had a little bit of time to experiment, so it's going to take a while before we have necessarily the end-all to be-all that this is the build. Kind of like when Bombardment Crusader came out. There kind of was only one way, really, to play it, and that's the way that everybody settled on. Right now, this is what people are settling on at the moment for playing Firebird, but it could change. It depends. It all depends on where Firebird places on the leaderboard and what that person's gear is rocking, because usually people will tend to copy that, because there is a metagame, and with metagames, usually you want to use what's the most optimal builds to be able to get high leaderboard placement. Now, for your Season 23 journey, if you decide that you are not going to use your Tal Raja set and you're just going to go Firebird, very early on in the season, my recommendation is you do a lot of bounties. You will need to do a lot of bounties for several reasons. The first reason being that in order to get Captain Crimson set to drop, you will need to have specific goblins drop the plans. Goblins don't show up quite a lot when you are doing Greater Rifts. They tend to show up quite a bit, and more frequently when you're doing bounties, which is why we recommend doing bounties. Another reason is, since you need to Kanai's Cube quite a lot of things here to be able to optimize this build, you want to get those blood shards as fast as possible. Now, keep in mind, you don't want to do your challenge rift right now. It's up and it's available, but that's about to reset on either Monday or Tuesday of the following week. So if you do your challenge rift now, it will be wasted. Wait for it to reset and then do it, and so that way you could get all the materials and blood shards and things that you need then. That's a very common mistake people make for the beginning of their seasonal journey for Diablo III. Now, with the set, like I said, do bounties, go for Captain Crimson, that way you can get the most damage possible out of it. Then start rolling for Death Wishes. Death Wish is a sword. There aren't too many swords that drop when you are using Death Breaths to re-roll those things. So if you go that method where you buy a bunch of swords and then you use your Death Breaths to upgrade a rare item, chances are you're going to get a Death Wish generally fast. And the next thing then I would recommend focusing on after the Death Wish is Orb of Infinite Death. Orb of Infinite Deaths have a significantly high chance of generally dropping when you're doing significantly high levels of Torment in Diablo 3, so that shouldn't really be a problem. I don't necessarily say waste your blood shards, but if you have extra blood shards and you got the rest of the stuff that you need, definitely focus on getting an Orb of Infinite Death using blood shards for the offhand orb. That's one strategy that you could do for that. Once you pretty much get that, definitely start Paragon farming. Invest, obviously, in your intelligence. Invest in cooldown reduction. Invest in movement speed. And then I would invest in the rest of the stats that way. You want the fastest cooldown speed possible. You want to be able to move around the map fast. You want a high intelligence stat. And then on top of that, cooldown reduction, very, very important, especially since we're using Captain Crimson. All right, so I'm going to ignite the Rift Guardian. Then I'm just using Spectral Blade, Mirror Images, and Hydras. And as you saw, it took about maybe 3 to 4 seconds to take out a Rift Guardian of greater Rift 70 and higher. And those things are generally tanky, so that shows you how much damage actually Disintegrate does when you stacking those combustion in conjunction with the rest of the abilities that are non-channeling to do damage. So we're going to level up this Bane of the Powerful. It really doesn't matter. Like I said before, I have pretty much all the gems I want leveled up at this point. That's just for augmentation purposes somewhere down the road. I believe this is probably going to be about a 6 or 7 minute clear time. Keep in mind that I don't have any ancient legendary pieces augmented, so 7 minute clear time greater of 70, that's actually significantly good considering the original Firebird set, when it was the original set skills, was going to take somewhere between 12 to 13 minutes to clear a greater Rift 70. So that's pretty much going to do it for the Firebird set. I think this is a great rework. It has a lot of potential, and there's a lot of experimentation that can be done with it. I will have a link in the description to a set build when I actually uncover one, so definitely keep looking in the description for that. And if you're not already, consider subscribing to the channel, and if you like this video, make sure to give it a like, and I will see you on Wednesday for the next Diablo 3 video. Till next time.